Have you ever thought about what's in a name? Well, in traditional Korea, it was a whole life story. A person didn't just have one name, they could have three. And in this explainer, we're going to break down how each one revealed a totally different side of who they were.
Okay, let's just jump right in with something that might blow your mind. You know King Sejong the Great? The guy on the 10,000 won bill, creator of the Korean alphabet? What if I told you that in his entire life, not a single person ever called him King Sejong? Seriously, sounds crazy, right? But it's true, and here's why.
You see, the name Sejong is what's known as a myoho, and that's a special temple name given to a king after he passed away to honor his legacy. So it was like a final, epic title. This tells us something really important about Korean culture back then. Names were way more complicated and way more meaningful than just a single label. So, how did it all work? Well, this whole system revolved around three core names that every person, especially scholars and aristocrats, would have. They were the hui, the ja, and the ho. Each one had a special job and was used in different parts of a person's life.
All right, let's start at the very beginning, with the first name a person ever got. This one was the most personal, the most private, and the most sacred of all. It's called the hui.
The hui was your birth name, the one your parents gave you. But it was seen as so fundamentally you, so tied to your very essence that it was protected. You could almost think of it like a password to your soul. It wasn't something for just anyone to use casually. To speak someone's hui was a big, big deal.
And there was even a name for this practice, gihui. It was a fundamental rule of respect. You would never ever call a king, your teacher, or even your own father by their birth name. It was just a huge sign of disrespect. Instead, you'd use a title like Janya for your majesty or Abyonim for father.
So, let's go back to King Sejong. This chart makes it super clear. His actual birth name, his hui, was Du. That was his sacred protected name. And the name we all know him by, Sejong, was the posthumous one given to him ages later. Totally different things.
Okay, so if you can't go around using people's most important name, what did you actually call them? I mean, you have to talk to your friends, right? Well, that brings us to the second name, the Ja.
When a beneficiary became an adult, usually around age 20, he had a whole coming-of-age ceremony. And at that ceremony, he was given a ja, or a courtesy name. This was his social name. It was the name his friends and colleagues would use. It was basically his public-facing identity, the one he used to navigate the world.
And you can really see the difference here. The hui was private, something to be protected and usually only used by people above you, like your parents. The ja, though, that was public. It was for socializing, for your friends, for everyday life. It was like your social handshake.
Let's take a look at the famous scholar Yi Huang. His hui, his birth name, was Huang. But if you were his buddy, another scholar hanging out with him, you would have called him by his ja, which was Gyong Ho. Calling him Huang to his face would have been a real awkward moment.
All right, so we've got the secret birth name, the hui, and the social adult name, the ja. But there was one more, and this is where it gets really fun and personal. This one is the ho ti.
The ho was like an art name, a pen name, or a really meaningful nickname. This was the name that you could actually choose for yourself, or one that your friends might give you. And it was all about expressing who you really were, your personality, your philosophy, your art, or even just a place you really loved. So when we hear names like DrJBHE or Yulguk, we're not actually hearing their birth names or their social names. We're hearing their ho. Yi Huang's ho, DrJBHE, literally means he who retreated to the stream, reflecting his desire to leave politics behind for a life of quiet study. Yi Ai's ho, Yulguk, means Chestnut Valley, the name of the place where he grew up. See? These names tell you so much about them.
So you can literally see a person's life journey mapped out in their names. You start with your sacred identity, the hui. Then you enter society as an adult with your public identity, the sha. And finally, you get to define your own personal creative self with a hodi. It's a whole progression.
Now, you might be thinking, wow, that is a lot of work. Why was this so important? Why not just stick with one name? Well, it wasn't just about being complicated. This system was the foundation of how society worked.
These names were like a social code. They immediately told you where you stood with someone else and how you should act. They were all about showing respect and marking those huge life transitions, like becoming an adult,
But just as importantly, they gave people a way to express who they were on their own terms, beyond just their family or social rank.
And you know, this whole concept of a ha, a name you choose for yourself to express who you are in a specific space, it probably sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it?
Of course it does. Your gamer tag? That's a ho. Your handle on Instagram or TikTok? That's a ho too. An artist's stage name, a YouTuber's channel name, even your online avatar. These are all modern versions of the exact same idea. They are identities we create to show a certain side of ourselves to the world.
And that's really the heart of it. Names weren't just simple labels. They were this incredibly deep system that held society together, mapped out a person's life, and honored both their public duties and their private soul. It was a way of building a life with real order and dignity.
So that kind of leaves us with a cool question to think about. Today, most of us just have one official name to get us through life. So how do we show all the different, complex parts of who we are? Maybe we're not so different from our ancestors after all.